It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I have this guitar here. It's an Agile, sort of a Les Paul copy. To be quite honest, I don't actually know a lot about this guitar. It's been here for, I don't know, 5-6 days, and I have been avoiding it. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm not suggesting anything is wrong with this guitar. It's just not interesting to me. And that can be difficult if something's not interesting to you, because I do all of this because it's interesting to me. And I haven't really had a guitar yet that I have found so uninteresting to me personally. I mean, that's a nice guitar. It looks super cool. The white is cool, it's got cool cream binding, its cream accents are cool, like that's how I'd do it up. But, I don't know, that sort of lets it down. That headstock shape's a bit weird. It's just, I don't like things that aren't symmetrical, so that to me just, there's something odd about it. I mean, it's cool looking, but it's just not something I personally like. But I have been avoiding this guitar, and I don't want to say anything negative about it because, if I'm perfectly honest, I haven't even plugged it in and played it. That's how disinterested I am in this guitar, and that's usually the first thing I do with every guitar I get through the door. Alright, I have to admit, part of the reason that I have been disinterested in putting together this guitar or doing, because it just needs a quick setup. Part of the reason I've been disinterested in doing this guitar is because currently it's tuned to like an open B or something like that. Also, when the strings were put on, they threw this thing on backwards. And you can see here somebody has tried to compensate for that, so this whole thing just needs to be swapped around, and then probably most of them have, this will need to come back quite far, and the rest of them will probably need some minor adjustment. But anyway, I'm not sure why they did that or if it was just a mistake, but that's no big deal. We can fix that lickety split. The nut seems to be pretty good order. It was pretty decent action all around there. The tuners they work great. They're actual Grovers. There's our little Agile logo. Crafted in China, I believe. Or no, South Korea. Handcrafted in South Korea. Just looks like a Les Paul. Would be a pretty cool looking real Les Paul. But this is just a knockoff. I'm not even overly familiar with this brand, if I'm perfectly honest. Currently he has 12s or 13s or something like that, and I guess my friend, his uncle, has talked him into going down to something a bit more reasonable, like 11s, because this was born with 10s. And he wants to tune it to open B, and he wants really thick ass strings, because he wants this to be like metal shred guitar. And if I'm honest, this is not a good candidate to be doing metal shred setup on, and you know, open tunings. Like, there's a lot to consider, and we don't know how well this is constructed, so, and so this set of saddles here was installed upside down. It doesn't matter which way you have it as long as you have the saddle set correctly, but this was clearly set up from the factory like this, and whoever put it on flipped it around. And you can see there that the G string, they've tried to compensate for that in some way, so I'm just going to reset these up. They've totally messed this up. We should have a little ramp like this and then a little ramp like that. So I'm going to try to readjust these roughly to where I think they should be, and then we'll check them when they get on the guitar. So right now is also a good time to lube these. I'm going to use my trusty little lube device that I created in another video, because sometimes these can be hard to move around. So I'm just going to go ahead and lube them all, actually from the front and the back. Okay, so hopefully you can see there that all I've tried to do is just create the initial, that's kind of what they're going to end up like anyway, so that's rough, right? We still have to check this the way you normally would at the 12th fret. But just to get going, I just sort of start with them like that. Now, I know it doesn't matter what side you put these on, whether you put these facing front or back, but I prefer them on the back because they're easier to get to. So normally when I put these on a Les Paul, I personally like the screws facing the back. It doesn't matter what way you put it on. It'll work regardless of however you put it on as long as it's set up correctly. But when I put it on, for hopefully various obvious reasons, and I've never actually heard anybody say this, somebody probably has, but it seems to me to make more sense that you can come in here from the back end with a screwdriver than you can from the front end with the pickups and everything in the way, and especially if you're trying to do this while the strings are on, like everything is in the way up here. But back here, you can do your intonation. Yes, the stop bar is also going to be slightly in your way, but you can see there, I've got pretty clear access with that stop tailpiece to those screws. Whereas if I had strings on here, everything is in your way. So it never made sense to me why you wouldn't always put it with the screws on backwards. I don't know, maybe somebody can say, because like I said, everybody seems to say it doesn't make any difference, including Gibson. Some of them come out of the factory one way, some of them come out of the factory another way, including knockoff Les Pauls. So to me, this just seems to make more sense. It seems to make more sense. Why wouldn't you have the screws where you have the most access to them? So that's just one of the little setup tips that I've picked up doing this myself repeatedly. It's a preference of mine. Alright, here's another little simple setup tip that, again, is a personal preference of mine. Alright, and I want to stress to everybody over and over and over, because it seems like I need to do this. I'm not an expert, I'm learning to do this stuff. Okay? But this has become a personal preference of mine, and it's really not a big deal, but I see people fight with this stuff all the time, and it makes no sense to me why you would fight with this on the guitar. Wow, talk about dragging out something simple here. I just like to load this up off the guitar. That's all. Why would I sit and muck around and try and load this up while it's on the guitar? That makes no sense to me. Load it up, then you're not fighting with it on the guitar. So once you get it loaded up, then you can just pop in the whole assembly with all the strings on. I find that if I preload this, I don't need to fight with trying to hold this on. As long as I've got hold of one string, it's not going anywhere. And as long as I keep tension on that string, that stays put. Alright, so here's actually something worth stopping and mentioning about stringing up this guitar, oddly enough. Normally, when I measure these strings, I'm so used to a certain gauge of strings that I can just pull the string 2 past the post, that's where I bend it, and then that's where I start winding it so that I get enough wraps. But clearly that's too many. And it's occurred to me that because these strings are so thick that I have probably had to wind less string around it. So when I went to the next one, I only measured 1 post past, and that seemed to be enough. Maybe go a little further, but a couple of good wraps seems to work usually pretty good for me. 2 or 3 wraps. I always fight with that damn G string, but it's there. It's set up, it's intonated, it's all ready to roll.